But I'll tell you what, when I'm done, my biceps are humongous. Humongous. Like that, bang!
My name is Anthony Bevilacqua, and I'm the host of New York Muscle Radio podcast. My arms have been a weak point for years. When I started training, my arms measured 11 inches. Even after many years of hardcore training, nothing would get them to grow. With the help of my co-host, Big Pete, we set out on a mission to gain 1 solid inch to my arms in 12 weeks.
In the greatest experiment of all.
12 weeks later, this program finally helped me get 18-inch arms. The 12-week Arm Experiment, the ultimate arm growth program, ebook, the audio book, and the workout video. Pick up your copy now on NewYorkMuscleRadio.com.
New York's very own muscle building coaches, Anthony Bevilacqua and Pete Kacharian, proudly present to you New York Muscle Radio.
What's up, guys? New York Muscle Radio, episode number 139. How to become a great lifter with Geno Powerlifting. So on today's podcast, your muscle building coaches talk with Geno Powerlifting about what it takes to become a good lifter. Geno is the USAPL Official MC who literally has seen it all. Learn what it takes to become the strongest lifter you can be from the man who has seen every lifter lift. So this is going to be a cool episode today. If you're a new listener, welcome to the best muscle building and fat burning radio show on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, YouTube, and wherever you're listening to this. I'm your host, Anthony Bevilacqua, and I'm right next to the big guy, Big Pete Kacharian. Big Pete Kacharian, and the lift, no good.
Oh, you got to throw that one at me, huh?
I had to motivate you a little bit, man.
Yeah, well, you know me. I'm motivated more from failures than successes. So we got a few things that we got to work off of, but that is good motivation.
Well, that's exactly why I said you missed the lift.
Yeah, got to remind me of that.
Yeah, exactly. So how you doing, man? What's going on? We got Big Geno coming on today. These guys, they call him the Pirate in powerlifting.
Yeah.
They call him the Pirate. I don't really know. You know what's funny is that probably should ask him that on the podcast, but I hope it comes up in conversation. But he kind of reminds me of like the Undertaker, you know, from wrestling, because he's like super tall and he's got like the long hair. So we should play like that music when he comes out, like the Undertaker's theme song.
That is definitely a badass person to follow. So that's definitely a good compliment, the Undertaker. I see that. I definitely see that.
Yeah, they call him Geno the Pirate, but I feel like we should replace that on New York Muscle Radio. We should replace that. Replace the Pirate with the Undertaker.
I like that.
Geno the Undertaker Powerlifting.
I like that, the Undertaker.
And they play his big music. He puts his hand in the air like the what's his name? Like the Undertaker does. But Geno's a really, really good guy, man. I really love him. Yeah, I remember my first powerlifting meet. He came up to me and was just talking to me, and I thought it was such a nice guy. I remember at Raw Nationals last year, my first Raw national competition. I was sick, man. Remember that? I was sick with the fever and my mom actually was talking to him because he's such a friendly guy, so he talks to everybody. So he was talking to my mom, and my mom said, yeah, Anthony's sick today. So I'll never forget getting out on the platform doing deadlifts, and Geno just goes, this kid's deadlifting with 101 fever. I'm like, what the hell? Yeah. Like, how does he know? I didn't know my mom told him that. But he's just a really cool guy, down to earth. So I was super excited to get him to come on today because this guy has definitely seen and witnessed so many great things in lifting in general, you know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's definitely been around it all. And, you know, the one thing that I really like about Geno is he's a very motivational guy, especially for not even the lifters, but even for the audience. He gets everybody engaged in each event. And, you know, he's one of those guys where if you have him calling, you know, your event, bar is loaded, Anthony Bevilacqua, that's really, you know, he motivates you to get under that bar and lift it. So he does his part, and he helps everybody out.
Yeah. Anyway, man, what else is going on with you? So I took a 2-week break from training after my meet because I was just really, really beat up, and it's been a while. And I was like, you know what? I have tendonitis. Actually, it's funny. We talked about this in a previous episode, but I got tendonitis from doing bent over barbell rows years ago. It totally killed my elbow because I was in search of deep lower lat insertion. So basically, for those of you that don't know what that means like you really look V'd out from the front, like your lats just stick out the side. And I was really trying to increase that muscle on me, and I focused on those for a while, and all it did was kill my elbow. So it kind of flared up during this last meet I think I know why. I think really the reason behind it was I did all my deadlifts, I think I prepped for that last meet. I mean, I never really stopped, but I didn't use straps at all for deadlifts, and I liked it better because it was more natural, it was more exactly what I do in a powerlifting meet. But I think it just killed my extensors and flexors in my forearm, and I think that flared up my tendonitis super bad. So I just took 2 weeks off just to let it rest and heal. So it's back. I did my first workout the other day. Dude, I can't even fucking walk. I am so sore, man. It's like the first time I worked out. When everything hurts, like it hurts to touch your thighs,
Oh, yeah. You get that newbie gains again are coming.
Yeah. So I'm going to blow up to like 245 pounds right now.
Oh, yeah.
One of my clients asked me the other day, I thought it was an interesting story. He asked me, he's like, because in my gym I have pictures up of Arnold, and anyone who kind of motivates me I put on the wall. So I have a picture of Arnold. So he kind of looks at me and goes, do you still want to look like Arnold? I'm like, dude, I've wanted to look like Arnold since I was like 13 years old. So yes, I still want to look like Arnold. I said, but realistically, I know I'm not going to get there. I think if I really wanted to quote unquote look like Arnold, I'd have to be in a single digit body fat at like 220. No, maybe like 210, 215. But still, because he's like 6'2", 240. I'm 5'11". I'd have to be like 210 at single digit body fat.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but everybody has different, bone density, stuff like that. So, the weight is just a basic example of it. But yeah, you'd probably have to be pretty close to that. Definitely.
I know that was Lane Norton's answer, and it's such a good answer because it's so true. But at the same time, it's like, come on, man, if you have more muscle, you're going to weigh heavier, you know?
But I mean, it's even like me. Everybody I talk to, especially people that I don't know, if right off the bat, if they ask me how much I weigh, they'll say, what do you weigh? 200, 210? And they're really surprised. I'm like, no, I'm only 180.
Yeah.
So
I know you weigh so light, man. It's crazy.
I've been telling them I've never been able to really get much above that. I've been 190, 195 at my heaviest.
That's crazy. You said 195, your heaviest?
Heaviest, yeah. That was last year, right around.
But you weren't even fat at that weight.
It's funny. Once I get over 180, I could kind of store some extra weight and not really, it won't really affect my appearance too much. I guess my body stores it in weird areas.
That's weird, though, because it's like random. You're 195. I feel like you're the same leanness as you are now. Maybe a little bit leaner.
I'm a little bit leaner right now.
And how much do you weigh right now?
185, yeah. So 10 pounds, yeah.
What did that do, that 10 pounds?
What did it go? Oh, it didn't do anything. I mean, that was just me eating around the holidays. And after that,
you were like the same body fat you are now.
No, I was definitely holding on to a little bit more.
It's definitely your fucking 770 testosterone levels that you're at.
Yeah, it knows where to put the fat cells.
Yeah, it doesn't put fat cells, it just puts on muscle. Yeah, for me, it's like 400. I'm average. That's apparently we learned from our last episode that the average testosterone for a normal guy is anywhere between 350 and 450. So I'm average in the testosterone department, which I don't understand that. How could that be possible? But whatever. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense sometimes. Sometimes you look at the things on paper and you're like, well, this doesn't make any sense. I got to get it higher. But then it's like, I look at what I've accomplished and I'm like, oh, that doesn't equal up.
Doesn't seem to be holding you back, so it's nothing to worry about.
Yeah, but imagine if my testosterone was at 700.
Yeah, but you can always imagine everything is different, So
yeah, that's true.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we have a cool thing today. What we're going to do is after the last episode we did with, the one before that with Matt Gary, I asked him a couple follow-up questions based on my own training. So we recorded it, and we're going to use it as a listener question of the day. But again, guys, going forward, if you guys have a question you'd like us to answer, you could submit it on our website, NewYorkMuscleRadio.com. So it's listener question. So today's a case study. I actually asked Matt how I should program my training going into my next meet. Obviously, for those of you that don't know, my next meet is going to be in October, and Matt had suggested that I do kind of a follow-up meet in June, just like a halfway point, just to kind of see where I'm at. I'm debating on if I actually want to do that meet or not, because I really want to focus on Raw Nationals, as that's the goal. But I just kind of asked him how I should structure my training and what you think I should do. So here's his answer, and I think everyone could learn from it. So we're going to play that clip now, and then we'll come back to it. All right, so now, here's my question. So basically, based on our conversation last time, we figured out that I have to add pretty much 100 pounds to my total in order to get to my goal to reach that 450 Wilks and go to the Arnold. That's the goal. So now the meet is, Raw Nationals is the meet I have to do that at, is 45 weeks away. Now, I've never programmed a training block for myself longer than 12 weeks. Now, I don't want to go about doing 12-week training blocks all the way in through. I mean, I could, that's an option,
But I was thinking the next meet that I would realistically try to compete at, because you said to do one more meet prior to Raw Nationals, even though I don't have to, you recommended doing that, would be June 4th. So that's exactly from next week is 27 weeks away. So how do I go about, I guess, programming a bigger block like that? I've never programmed a 27-week block. Do I just basically take a 12-week block and extend it? So basically do more weeks in a volume block. I train in the DUP style, same way you do. And, so I'm just not sure how to go about it because I have a lot of time. Like, do I focus on doing the main lifts the whole time? Do I swap out some accessory movements in there? Like, I've never programmed the block that long, so I don't know how to go about increasing my strength throughout the whole time. Does that make sense?
It does. Okay, so if you've got 27 weeks until your next competition, I would, and are you programming in 4-week blocks?
Yeah, give
roughly?
or take. I mean, what I was going to do was if I was going to do like a bigger block, I could make them 6 and 8 weeks if I had to.
Yeah, so I typically like to program in 4-week chunks just because it fits into the calendar neatly. Obviously some months are 5 months, some months are 5 weeks long, and that's fine. But typically, our Christian calendar, if you will, is 4 weeks. And so I like to program that way. So if you have 27 weeks, you essentially have, literally 6 months or 6 4-week blocks, and then you're going to have 3 weeks left over. So I would, if I were you, if your competition is 27 weeks away, I would definitely program in a mock meet or a test date in your gym, probably smack dab in the middle. Okay. So again, I would pull out your calendar. You've got 27 weeks. I think that's too long to go without testing. You want to do, 2 peaks. Obviously peaking into the competition 27 weeks away, but maybe kind of split it in half, or maybe, at the 14-week mark or the 13-week mark or something like that. Yeah. So maybe what you do is you set up 3 4-week training blocks. That's 12 weeks, right? And then you test on, let's say, the 13th week. Yeah. Okay. And then you're going to have probably a down week coming off of that competition or coming off of that test day, an active rest phase, if you will, a transition phase, whatever you want to call it, of maybe a week or two. And that's still going to leave you with probably a good 10 to 12, maybe even 13 weeks leading into that second competition. So that's how I would do it. And typically, again, you're using DUP, but most of the time, if you're using some type of block periodization, usually you're going to have like a hypertrophy block, followed by a strength block, followed by a peaking block. Correct. And then obviously you're using daily undulating periodization within that block. And most of the time, it's linear, it's not mutually exclusive, but, so you've got within the block, you've got almost like a hypertrophy day, a power day, and a strength day, let's say. But I think that would set up kind of nice. That way you're not like, oh man, I've gone 26 weeks. It's going to be 27 weeks before I actually test my lifts again. Because clearly you're going to get a lot stronger between now and those 27 weeks. And you don't want to, you don't want to leave too much time. The other way you could do it, if you really wanted to, is you could test twice. You could do like 27 weeks divided by 3 is about 9 weeks at a time. So you could train for 2 months and, try to peak in 2 months and test, and then do it again. And then, test in the 27th week at the competition, essentially. Okay, if you wanted to sense. You could do, look, if your body, your body better than anybody else. So if you feel like you can ramp up pretty quickly and your strength, you can bring your strength to a peak pretty fast, then maybe you want to test twice. If you feel like you need a little bit more time or what have you, I don't know what your schedule's like around the holidays. Most of the time people are spending more time with family, et cetera. You're not going to be as diligent with your training. I know you're diligent, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
It's a little more flexible. So, only you can answer those questions. I don't know how beat up you are coming off that last meet, or if you're feeling like a rock star,
Well, I feel good now. I took exactly 2 weeks off. I had bad elbow tendonitis that was killing me. So that pretty much went away. So I wanted to take time off. So this is my second week completely off. So I'm ready to do everything right now. I'm ready to conquer the world.
You're ready to get back into it. So, yeah, I think, that would probably be appropriate, is maybe testing once. Like I said, setting up a mock meet in the gym where you're actually going to, get up, get weighed, put on your singlet, go through the whole deal, take 9 attempts.
That's perfect, because I was thinking about doing that too, but then I thought that I would get more out of just training straight through instead of like peaking for that.
No, I don't think there's any harm in it, and it doesn't need to be necessarily a hard peak. In other words, look, I mean, your ultimate goal is to put forth your best performance and your best total, your best package at Raw Nationals, right? So each of these peaks along the way are going to probably gradually rise in intensity, And so,
that makes sense.
Yeah, maybe your first peak is not as hard. You know what I mean? And without having your training right in front of me that I could actually look at, I'm painting with some broad strokes, but that's generally, some general guidelines that I would use.
And really quick, you mentioned when the way you program is in 4-week blocks, and that's kind of similar to what I do. Do you do I guess not a deload? I usually use like my taper week, or my intro week is kind of like my quote unquote deload week. How do you program that in? Do you program it on the 4th week or on the 5th week?
Most of the time I would put that on the 5th week.
Yeah.
Again, just so like, for instance, for you right now, you're probably chilling tomorrow with your family for Thanksgiving, and then you got the weekend or whatever. And then next week could be your intro week for December.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's going to be.
Yeah, because kind of looking at the calendar, I think that makes sense. So you could do an intro week where, half of your week is November, half of your week is December, because I guess you're going to have 4 extra weeks in December. Yeah. And Christmas falls on a Sunday, so that kind of works out well. So, you could probably get in 4 solid weeks in December. So do an intro week next week and then hit the ground running on Monday, December 5.
Yeah.
Or whatever your first training day of the week is. And then you got 4 weeks and just go like that.
And then just kind of deload on that 5th week, or take like that intro week. That's usually what I've been doing, is that 5th week is like the intro week to the next block. So let's say I'm going from a volume to an intensity. That 5th week is going to taper down the volume and increase the intensity just a little bit. The volume's a little bit lower, and then I just kind of ramp it up in that 6th week then.
Exactly. And I mean, it's, again, this is where it becomes specific to the individual. So people talk about, you got to take a deload every 3rd or 4th week. Well, that's not necessarily true, because, recovery ability is more like a genetic trait. It's kind of like I talk to people about, it's your ability to like tolerate sunlight. I mean, you've got albinos at one end of the spectrum who can't tolerate any because they burn, and then you've got the darkest African Americans at the other end. Well, most of us fall in the middle. So you just kind of have to find where that sweet spot is. I don't think it's mandatory that you deload every 4th or 5th week. Look, if your recipe has been working and you've been producing a tasty meal, if you will, then clearly continue with that recipe. But if you don't feel like you're beat up, or you don't feel like you need to deload, then you don't necessarily need to taper or deload. I mean, it's kind of specific to the individual. I don't, and that's why I would say the vast majority of our training occurs in the 80 to 89% range. Yeah. And I tell you what, man, if you train the bulk of your time in that range, kind of with the sweet spot being between 80 and 85, honestly, for, doubles and triples and so forth, a lot of doubles, a lot of triples, in that sweet spot. Look, it's heavy enough that you can enhance your skill, and it provides a neuromuscular benefit and a neuroendocrine response in the body, but it's also light enough that it doesn't beat you up. Yeah. It's not, ultra high intensity, so your joints don't take as much of a beating, and you'll always be strong. You're only a few weeks away from peaking your strength. If you hover in that 80% ish range, it's only going to take you a short time, man, before you're ready to fight at any time. Is kind of the way, the analogy that I use.
Matt, thank you so much, man. I don't want to take up any more of your time, so thank you that you answered my question, actually.
All right, so yeah, we're back. So, he gives serious. See what I mean? That guy's Matt Gary is a really, really good guy. Him and his wife, they really are genuinely good, knowledgeable people who will help you out. I mean, he tagged me in Facebook on something the other day, and he's like, "Oh, if you need, send me your workout program." And yeah, the guy's a busy guy, and he wants to look at my workout program to help me. It just goes to show you that there's so many nice people in the world, and Matt and Gary definitely stick out above the rest.
Oh, yeah, and they're both very passionate people about the sport. Like he said, to take time out of his day just to look at your training program and how everything's going. You could tell it's just something he loves doing, and he loves helping people. So he's definitely one of those people. Him and his wife are definitely two people that just genuinely help people in the sport. And like I said on the other podcast, that's the one great thing about powerlifting. You really see that. It's a community. Everybody loves to help each other. It's not like some of these other sports where there's so much arrogance and competition. I mean, it is a competitive sport, but it's one of those things for anybody who's been to an event. Everybody competing loves to see everybody else succeed as well.
Yeah. So that was good. I think he gave good advice too, because I was kind of confused on how I should schedule my training. Pretty much, if I should do one big block leading up into the meet. And for those of you that don't know, when you structure training, it's good, as Matt said, it's good to structure it in 4-week intervals. And this way you could kind of structure and see what's going on and make adjustments from there, because you don't want to kind of plan too far out. Because 24 weeks is a long time. It's 6 months.
Yeah.
So you don't want to plan that far out without having small. I mean, you do want to plan that far out, but you need to have like little small chunks in between that are more manageable. So kind of the way I look at it is, all right, in 6 months, the goal is to do this. And I have to break that down into 2-3 month goals. And then in this next 3 months, I have to do this. It's kind of how I think the best way to do it. This is why I like powerlifting training so much.
Yeah, and I think
so much more cut and dry.
Yeah, a lot of people that really don't focus on powerlifting training, they won't even look that far in advance, and I think that's a mistake too. You should look to where your end goal is, but you need to structure it in such a way where you're reaching goals along the way to make sure you're on the right path. Because a lot of people, they just start with no end in mind, and there's no clear-cut answer if you're going in the right direction to reach your goals. So that's why you have to look at it long-term as well as short-term.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you don't want to be a powerlifter, even when I was bodybuilding, I could have benefited from doing this.
Oh, yeah.
If I wanted to get bigger, I could benefit from doing this. So regardless, you should structure your training and look at it like you're a competitive lifter, because it's going to help you long-term. So this is why I think powerlifters are so far ahead of bodybuilders as far as training goes.
Yeah, I mean, because the biggest thing is planning. I would say 99% of the bodybuilders I know, their structure of training is basically, okay, I'm going in the gym and I'm training chest today. And then what are you doing your next chest workout? Oh, I don't know yet. I'll do it next week, So while that might be good just to start off, I think, if your goal is to get the most out of your training and become as successful as you can, there has to be some structure in there. And like you said, I think that's where powerlifters are a little ahead of the curve compared to bodybuilders in planning their training.
Yeah. All right, so I think let's take this short commercial break. I'm excited to get Geno on here and learn. I want to hear some of his stories, man, because that guy's definitely seen some crazy war stories, I'm sure. Things going on backstage, I'm sure.
What's up, New York Muscle Radio listeners? It's your co-host, Big Pete Kacharian, and I'm glad you're all listening. Put down that tilapia and asparagus. Learn how to get bigger, stronger, and leaner eating what you want. Pick up a copy of Cracking the Flexible Dieting Code exclusively at NewYorkMuscleRadio.com. But for now, let's get to the show.
Nice, Pete.
What?
I saw you checking out that girl's butt.
What? I was just checking out her yoga pants.
Pete.
I was thinking you'd look really good in yoga pants.
Uh-huh.
I was trying to check out what brand it was. I was looking at her form on deadlifts. They were all messed up.
Do you think she has a nicer butt than me?
Well, it definitely doesn't look like a pancake.
Did you just call my butt a pancake?
Well, I mean...
What can I do?
You gotta try New York Muscle Radio's Glutealicious program.
Glutealicious?
Yeah, you'll finally get a celebrity booty, like all the other girls following the program.
Fine, I'll do it, but don't get jealous when other guys check out my glutealicious ass.
Glutealicious, your guide to getting a celebrity booty in 12 weeks. Now available exclusively at NewYorkMuscleRadio.com.
Want anything special for your birthday?
Just a decent cup of coffee.
You're kidding.
I'm serious. Honey, your coffee's undrinkable.
It's pretty harsh.
Well, so's your coffee. You know, the girls down at the office make better coffee on their hot plates.
And he didn't even kiss me goodbye. You know, if I could just make a decent cup of coffee, I could relax.
So relax. Why don't you try Coffeine from BuyProteinCoffee.com? Tastes good as fresh perked.
Good as fresh perked.
And it has protein. 10 grams per scoop.
I'll surprise Harvey for his birthday tonight.
Hey, great coffee.
Doesn't it taste good as fresh perked?
Better.
Better than those girls make at the office?
Honey, their coffee can't hold a candle to yours.
Coffeine, the world's only instant coffee that's fortified with muscle-building protein. Visit buyproteincoffee.com now.
Hey guys, it's your host, Anthony Bevilacqua, and I just wanted to announce that my brand new personal training facility is now open. I'm currently taking on new clients in the Long Island, New York area. If you're interested in working with the best personal trainer in the business, head on over to abfitnesstrainer.com and sign up for your free consultation. Then you can understand why bodybuilding.com has named me Personal Trainer of the Month.
Alright guys, we're back. New York Muscle Radio, episode number 139. How to become a great lifter with Geno Powerlifting. So guys, Geno is the official voice of the USAPL. He's announced thousands of meets, local and nationwide, and he's seen the best lifters in the world destroy the platform, and he has even seen the best fail. This man has seen and knows what it takes to become a champion. So Geno, welcome to the New York Muscle Radio show. How's it going, buddy?
Anthony Bevilacqua, the lift is good. And Pete, thanks for having me, fellas.
Man, it's great to have you on, buddy. And I'm super excited for this because I want to know your story too, like everyone else. So I'm excited, man. So let's just get right on this. So for those of you who may not know you, how did you get involved with powerlifting and with the USAPL, and just your kind of background story?
Kind of a funny story. And I'll bet a couple of these places that I was working prior to powerlifting, you fellas might have frequented once or twice. I used to work back in the day in corporate finance, and a friend of mine used to own some clubs down at the Jersey Shore. His name was Joey Barcelona. A lot of people think his name is Joey Harrison, but his name is actually Joey Barcelona, and he owned Joey Harrison Surf Club down in Ortley Beach. And he used to run contests, dance contests and bikini contests. So a friend of mine named B2B and myself, we used to go down there and run those contests at his club and many other clubs on the Jersey Shore. We ran dance contests, bikini contests. And, it's an easy job when you're pulling, 24 women in G-strings up on the stage after the guys have been drinking on the beach all day. It's not much of a job. It's fun. And one day, a guy from my local town saw me on stage.
So, hold on, wait. Where are you from originally?
I grew up I'm from the Bronx.
New York native.
Little while in Long Island, and then moved to Wayne, New Jersey.
Okay.
And now I'm in Rockaway, New Jersey. So always in the local area, either New York or northeastern New Jersey. So, the Jersey Shore was where I went every summer. And that's where I hung out, and that's where I started to get involved in that. And this guy who owned a powerlifting gym in Rockaway, New Jersey, by the name of Joe Morielli, he said, he saw me. He was in the audience, and he said at one of the bikini contests, and he said, "Hey, would you come and announce a powerlifting contest?" And I said, "No way, man. I'm not a powerlifter. I know nothing about the sport." He said, "Come on down." He said, "You'll co-announce with somebody." He said, "You be the color man. He'll be the play-by-play. You'll learn the business. You can come and train with the guys." And I said, "All right, I'll give it a try." Came down, announced the first meet, and had no idea what I was doing, but learned from all the guys there. That little gym in Rockaway, New Jersey, even to this day, and that was almost 20 years ago, pal. That was almost 20 years ago, and to this day, they still have a handful of guys that are national, and many of them, world record holders and world champions in their appropriate weight class and age groups. And I did a couple of them there. Then I started to train with them. They were nice. They were nice enough, Anthony, and patient enough I was volunteering for them, so they were nice enough and patient enough to work with me. You know, when they'd load the bar up to 600 pounds for Dennis Cherry worked out in that gym. When they'd load the bar up for 600 pounds for Dennis Cherry, they'd unload it to 300 pounds for me. You know, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday I was in there, and I was training with them, learning the sport and powerlifting with them. Never felt I was good enough to compete at their level, so just competed at the gym and worked out with them at the gym enough to learn the business and do the 3 lists. And you shouldn't be doing it for competition. You should be doing it for yourself. But I enjoyed picking up the microphone more than the weights, but did train with them and still train with them for many, many years, 3 days a week to learn the business. So that's kind of how I got my start, announcing a little local meet with 20-something lifters in Rockaway, New Jersey, in a little gym and behind a strip mall, and it kind of grew from there. I kind of fell into it. They said, "Do you want to do a state meet now?" I said, "Okay." Met somebody at the state meet that said, "I'm doing a national meet. Do you want to do our national meet?" I said, "Okay." Then somebody said, "Do you want to come announce the Arnolds?" I announced the Arnolds. Then I met a guy from Sweden who said, "We want you to come and announce the World Bench Championship." And I said, "Don't you have anybody in your own country that you want to announce?" And he said, "No, we want you." And I literally just fell in. I didn't plan this. I didn't want this. I mean, I'm loving it, but I just kind of fell into it. And now I'm traveling. I leave in a couple of days to go to New Zealand to announce the Asian Oceanic Championship. So I'm traveling the world, traveling the United States, and I'm really enjoying the ride.
That's so cool. What a cool story, for you, I mean, this is like something, like you said, you were announcing, at clubs where Big Pete would go all the time as a kid, and you were announcing all stuff like that. How did you end up with just like the USAPL? Was that just like the first organization at that first local meet, that was the organization? Like, have you ever been approached by other organizations and maybe even other kind of sports, I guess, not powerlifting aside?
I have been approached by other organizations, and I've done the USAPL was obviously the first one, and back then it wasn't even the USAPL. It's USADA, whatever it was. I don't even remember. It was so long ago. But yeah, it was those guys that approached me. So I tend to focus on that. As I started to do more and more, there were other groups, USPA and a few others that I've been involved with. And then of course the USAPL got me involved in the IPF, as they are a subset of the IPF. And what happened was I got involved in all of those. And I never really got involved in. It got me so busy. My job at the time, was doing corporate sponsorships for sports and entertainment celebrities. So if you saw Tom Brady holding a box of cereal, or Britney Spears holding a candy bar, we would put the celebrity together with the corporate entity. So I was doing announcing, and I would announce, celebrity basketball games. I would announce celebrity charity softball games with Derek Jeter and Pete Rose and a whole list of other celebrities. So I was always involved with other sports from a job standpoint, but never really got involved with them in terms of officially announcing the way I am for powerlifting. But powerlifting has now consumed most of my time, where I wouldn't even have time to do anything else. I'd love to, but right now I don't have the time to do anything else. Basically every weekend I'm off somewhere now.
And how often do you end up working out? Because with a travel schedule like that, I mean, it must be a little tough.
Dude, I was in the gym yesterday, and I hate to admit this, but it had been over a month since I had been to the gym, and it felt horrible. Horrible.
Yeah, I mean, because at the last meet that I did, you were the announcer there, and it's always nice to hear those words. You said, "Anthony Powelifting, and the lift is good." It brings back a lot of good memories. But
Anthony, by the way, let me interrupt, especially since that last meet, I got to announce a PR squat for you.
Yeah, what's funny is that, so in between, my whole story was you came in off of another meet, like you had just done another meet, you came in with your suitcase, and you left right before the end. So you didn't even get to announce me as the winner and the overall winner and the men's winner.
Very disappointing. Anthony, you're telling me you got best overall winner by Wilkes Formula?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, congratulations. That is disappointing. My buddy, and I don't even get to announce that at the end, you know?
I know. They told me you were leaving, and I was like, man. But it's all right. Next time, don't worry.
I was off. I had just come back from Ontario. That I was in Ontario, Canada, earlier that morning. Caught a morning flight in to announce that competition, and then was leaving to get to Orlando for the Open Worlds, IPF Open Worlds. So you're right. It is a busy schedule, and it does take away from my lifting, and I wish I could do more. Do you know there are times, Anthony, I know you're going to laugh at this, I will actually get a quick workout in with my sequin-studded vest in between the 20-minute break between squat and bench at some of the events. And
hey, listen, you got to do what you got to do.
That's right, man. You get it in when you can, you know?
All right. So out of all the events you've ever been to, and this is going to be a tough question for you to ask because you probably have announced thousands and hundreds of thousands of meets at this point, but what moment or accomplishment stands out the most to you that you have ever seen on the platform?
Well, I'm going to state two kind of obvious ones that I was right in the middle of. One would be at the Arnold's this past March, where Blaine Sumner was the first person to squat 500 kilos. Over 1,100 pounds, I believe, and then came back, and that was a world record, and then came back with a world record bench, and I don't remember the bench, 884, 886 pounds, whatever that was. So to be able to be standing right there and get the crowd going for both of those lifts for Blaine was one of the top events in terms of just stands out in the memory and the excitement and all that. But right up there with it, I'd say equal to that, was just this past October at Raw Nationals when Ray got up there to be the first person to squat over 1,000 pounds raw. And a quick story, if I could tell you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ray gets out there, and you got to load up a lot of red plates. And the boys are loading it up, and Ray's doing his thing. I'm standing right next to him, and he's pacing back and forth like a caged panther, just waiting to get at that rack. And he's staring the rack down, and he mumbles under his breath. Only I could hear because I was 2 feet from him. He says, "Load it up," as they're loading up the plates, the spotters and loaders on each side. And I ran to the front of the bar to the audience, and I said, "You guys didn't hear that, but Big Ray just said, load it up. Let me hear you say, load it up." And the crowd went, "Load it up, load it up, load it." I got them screaming, load it up, until we ran out of red Alicos, and he was ready to rock. And to watch him sink that deep and come up and nail that, I mean, the crowd, they were hanging from the rafters. There was more excitement. There was more people. I guess that's part of the reason. There was a bigger venue, was more people. But man, that was the place was on such a high. There was so much energy in that room. That was probably, those two events were definitely the tops.
Yeah, so obviously Blaine and Ray are both two really strong guys and clearly very successful at what they do. And I don't know if you know them both personally or if you've just seen them at the events.
I know Blaine. I know Blaine and his family very well, and I'm getting to know Ray's. I know Ray pretty well too, but I'm also getting to know Ray's family. His wife, his kids. I met his father at the last World Championship, the Raw Worlds down in Killeen, Texas. So, yeah, I mean, do I hang out with them and have beers with them? No, but I know the parents, and I know the wives and the fiancés and the children and the grandparents. So, yeah, I'm getting to know them pretty well now.
Yeah, and I'm always curious to know, like, these guys are great at what they do. They're some of the best in the sport. Do you happen to know, like, if you could pick something out maybe as far as their characteristics or personality traits that you think allows them to be as successful as they are?
Well, let me answer that from two standpoints, both powerlifting and non-powerlifting. I mean, being the novice powerlifter I am, this is obviously just from perception, not from experience. But
well, that is from experience, though. I mean, you know, because you've seen you've seen beginners, you've seen even advanced people step up to the platform, and there's got to be certain traits that you see with the successful guys versus just an average person.
You know, well, with them, let me state the obvious, which you're going to say, yeah, that makes sense, is both of them obviously have the genetics. And I've always found that I've seen some powerlifters that have the genetics but really don't have the training ethic. And I've seen vice versa. I've seen, there's a guy, God, I forget his name now, from Sweden, who basically had almost no genetics. Even his coach would tell me that was the case. But this guy is a Masters 1 lifter now, and for the last 20 years, that guy has just dug it out every day. And so he was all about training, and he got to where he was and competed at the Arnolds this year, just on pure. I liken him to Pete Rose, not to draw a baseball analogy, but I'm friends with Pete Rose, and Pete Rose was just, you know, his nickname was Charlie Hustle, a guy got the most hits in the history of baseball. And he didn't have some of the natural skills that a lot of the other players had. It was just toughing it out and working hard every day. And so some you have just the natural genetics. They don't really train as often. Some, they have no genetics and they're just training. But when you get somebody that has the two of them and you put them together, and that's what I see both with Blaine and with Ray. From a personal standpoint, if you get to know both of them, you know, Ray is the most polite, soft-spoken, sweet teddy bear gentleman you could possibly imagine. And Blaine's pretty much the same. His mom is a sweetheart. He's always polite and soft-spoken. And there's what I like about the two of them is there's a lot of humility. Not to say that it has anything to do with their powerlifting success, but just as individuals in the sport and in society. Their humility is second to none given their accomplishments. And that means a real lot to me when I get to hang out with both of those fellows.
So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. You know, we had Ray on. Ray was a great guy. He was a great guest to have on. And we haven't interacted with Blaine yet. But, you know, I understand what you're saying. Ray's like a very gentle giant, I guess is the right way to put it. But he trains very instinctive. And I think it's, you know, very cool what you said, how it's all about that daily grind. You know, that's what separates the champions from not. Because like you said, you've seen a lot of people with subpar genetics who just overcome. And one that really comes to mind is Lane Norton, and I know you've watched him squat, and you know he held the world record squat, and he's not really built to squat. He's like one of the tallest guys in his weight class. You know, you're
not kidding. Yeah, so, and he's overcome some injuries recently too, which is that's a great example. The bio lane. I love announcing the bio lane, and I announced one of his meets last year out in Las Vegas. A real gentleman also, and man, does he know the sport.
So now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, you've seen the greatest accomplishments for lifters all over the world, but what about some of the worst? You told us a lot of good stories, and let's get to the kind of bad stuff. Obviously, with lifting, there's a ton of untold stories, failures, disappointments, and maybe even like some cheating. So what kind of story sticks out to you, worst to you? So if you want to talk about some failures, we can talk about failures. If you want to talk about disappointments, because I'm sure, like we said, you have thousands of meets. I mean, even cheating, because I think that's a big part, and that's like kind of never gets spoken about either.
Well, this is a tough one. You know, there are. I've seen you see little cheat. Everybody wants an edge, you know. And you see the little things that go on, like which I've always had a complaint, and I've brought up to the NGB and other individuals. You know, there's a rule in the back when you're preparing to come out for a raw competition that you can get no assistance in putting on your knee sleeves. And I've seen people getting assistance putting on their knee sleeves. And that may be, you know, I mean, it's minor, but you're supposed to have at this first time at this World Championship, quite frankly, if I may interrupt my own story, you know how we always have a technical controller that stands kind of at the door to guide the person out and make sure their equipment's on correctly and all that. This time we had a technical controller right before the platform, and then we had a warm-up room technical controller, because you can't honestly do both at the same time. It's impossible. So you had one guy in the back room that was just making sure the right number of coaches were back there. You didn't have too many people to make sure that people were not getting assistance. I mean, when this was equipped, but I think we need to have a warm-up room technical controller to keep everybody on an equal playing field. Don't let them cheat by getting assistance with their gear. Don't let them cheat like I've seen some people, some countries I've seen the entire team, they're back there wrapping themselves up with shrink wrap. I get the whole thing. You put the plastic bags on to get your equipment on, okay? But you're supposed to take the plastic off after that. And they were wrapping up in shrink wrap, and I don't mean just to glide the shirts on. They were wrapping up in shrink wrap and then keeping it on after they put their shirts on. That's not fair either. So you see, and why? Because it's in the back room where nobody's watching them, where you have to rely on somebody else, another lifter or another coach, to come out and tell somebody at the jury table. And that doesn't always happen, because you're back there and you're warming up and you're in the zone. You're not watching everybody else. So you see some of that go on. And then, of course, it's always disappointing when you see somebody that gets out there and wins, gold, gets up on the platform, and then you find out later that they failed for doping. And a lot of countries, I don't want to mention any names, but a lot of the countries seem to be rampant in that capacity, and you kind of wonder what would the real results be if everybody was completely clean all the time, So doping, cheating on equipment, getting your name up there and standing on the platform and getting all that glory. I mean, as you know, Anthony, this sport is all about the individual. It's not like you guys are all getting $10 million sponsorships from major corporations. You're doing it for the love of the sport, and it's costing everybody a lot of time, money, sweat, and resources. And the one moment of glory that everybody gets is when you're up on that platform and you get to hear the national anthem, or you get to go up and receive that gold medal. And to have that taken away and just given to you after the fact because someone failed doping, and you just get it, later when you're not even up on that platform, is a big disappointment. And that's one aspect, a negative aspect, that really bothers me about the sport.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the funny things too, because every year the USAPL usually puts out that list of who fails, and it amazes me how many women actually fail. I
was amazed that there were, I believe it was a couple of women that failed, that recently failed at nationals, which it was a little, you would think it would be the guys, and you're right, that is an interesting point.
So what about now some untold stories of failure and disappointment, like some of the best, because again, you've seen the best lift, you've seen even at local contests. Is there any story that kind of sticks out in particular from maybe even a local contest of just sheer disappointment? Because you see people in the back warming up, you see them coming out, and you see just the things that happen. So is there any untold stories of failure and disappointment that sticks out to you that kind of you remember?
Man, not well. When you say failure because yes, I've seen some failure when they didn't hit their numbers, okay, but not failure for doping or for cheating or anything else. Just somebody that has come out and I can't, gosh, I could give you. I guess they're all convoluted now. It's disappointing. It was something to watch, and it was excitement. Was it my buddy LS McLean?
I love LS, man. He was on our podcast before. The only thing I don't like about LS, he's a Dallas fan, man.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Go Giants. Well, listen. He came out. I don't know if you saw it at Raw Nationals. he came out and that guy, man, I've been announcing he is a gentleman. He is another humble guy in the sport. I don't know if you saw, he actually went ahead and did a Geno T-shirt.
I have one. Me and my co-host both have one.
Well, I appreciate you doing that, and it goes to a good charity, man. It goes to women's breast cancer, and it goes to bullying. So I appreciate you buying them. But he and a hell of a bencher, man, a hell of a bencher. But he was pulling for the silver medal, his last deadlift at Raw Nationals, if I remember this correctly now, and he would have tied and won the silver medal on body weight. And he, you got to watch it on video. He had that. He locked it out, and he held it there, and he was waiting for that. And here's where it's the gray area. He was waiting for that down command. He thought he was there. He should have gotten the down command, and chief referee thought he wasn't holding on tight enough and was going to slip, and eventually it did slip, but it was a long count up there, and he went down with that bar. He bounced. There were 5 simultaneous platforms. He bounced from his platform over. He ran and literally jumped over every bench and weight and chair and person that was in his way for like 2 or 3 platforms over to the other end. That's how his disappointment came out. He literally ran 50 yards, just bouncing away, saying, "Oh!" And there was a classic example of a real champion who took it right down to the wire, gave the audience the excitement that they want to see, that makes the sport, fun to watch. And didn't, had a smile on his face afterwards and said, I thought it was long enough, but it is, the referee made the call. Wasn't bitter, a real gentleman. But that was a big disappointment for him, I know. But the man has so many other accolades that just makes him, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And he's going to come back and get it next year.
Yeah, that's a great story. And, also something that I want to talk about is I think a lot of people that aren't involved in the sport too much, or don't know too much about it, they assume that a lot of these athletes, they're lifting such heavy weights that a lot of injuries happen. And,
right.
The injuries are always going to be in every sport, but have you ever really seen any type of serious injury on the platform, something that might stand out to you?
Yeah, I saw a girl at the Arnolds, I think last year, that got I couldn't see exactly what happened, but she broke her arm pretty badly coming down on the squat. I don't know. She lost control and it fell off her back and it twisted her arm somehow, and she got a pretty bad break on her arm, her radius or her ulna, I forget. That looked very painful. That was as painful as watching. You probably don't remember, but watching Lawrence Taylor tackle what's his name at that football game when you saw that break in the leg.
Oh yeah. I don't remember who he tackled, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
What I'm talking about. But that quarterback. Also, what was I going to say? There was also a guy this past year, and I don't remember his name, but a Masters 1 lifter who was pulling, and he just passed out, went right down on the ground, and ER comes over, and I remember standing over him, and the guy gives him some advice. He says, "Well, you're a Masters 1 lifter." He says, "This is the second time." The guy passed out twice, and he came back for his third. And the guy comes over. He says, "My advice to you is stop powerlifting." And the kid sits up and looks at him and says, "That's not going to happen." So there's what I love, man. I love being able to, there's a kid that every time he deadlifts, so when he comes up for his third deadlift, it's almost as if it's on cue. The blood, as soon as he locks it out, the blood just splurts out of his nose and sprays all over his chest at the bar, and you got, I mean, not to get too graphic, but you got people peeing and puking. And
actually, I was actually going to ask you that, because I've seen, I'm sure we all have seen those like Instagram photos and Facebook videos of like people throwing up. You've actually seen that? Like, does that happen often?
The peeing happens more often than you'd think. You just really can't see it from the audience, or you're not clear unless you're standing right next to it. The peeing happens quite often. And the puking doesn't happen.
By guys or girls or both? Is it like
well, I'm going to say this. 99.9% of the time, it's the females. And I guess that's just the physiology of a woman versus a guy. But it's 99% of the time, it's the females. The puking, 99% of the time, it's the males. One guy threw up at Raw Nationals, and there's another guy from Canada who like regularly throws up every time.
On the platform?
Oh, on the platform. I was. It was a competition I was doing in Orlando. It was a big competition. I don't remember the year or the event, but there was a guy from Canada who is notorious for that, and Jen Thompson was in the chief referee chair. And this guy like a projectile. She actually had it back. She got it all over her shoes, and she had to back up the chair to prevent it from getting all over her. And you know what the good thing is? Every time this guy pukes, he's puking when he's only halfway up with the bar. It just comes flying out, and this guy does not lose concentration or momentum. Locks out and gets the lift every time he pukes. I swear, I think that's why he pukes. He knows he's going to make the lift. But it just goes to show you what, and back to your original question, it just goes to show you what people at this elite level are putting their bodies through, and capillaries in their eyes are bursting, and peeing and puking and blood splurting out. But having said that, that's at the elite level when they're really pushing themselves, and I know there are some injuries. But it's such a good sport just to do at a moderate level. A college did a study a while back that I wanted to let you know on the bone density of women that reach menopause. And that's a major issue today in society. And they did a study and found that on average, women who powerlift, and I mean average powerlifters, not world champions, that they have twice after they reach menopause, if they're a power lifter, they have on average twice the bone density of a woman who does not power lift. That in and of itself, in my opinion, means women should pick up the weights and do more than just running on the treadmill or hitting the elliptical. Because if you can run up a flight of stairs as you get much older and not be winded, that's one thing. But if you're not winded and you trip and you fall on your hip and you break your hip, that's the beginning of the end, and especially for the older people. And if you've got that bone density that's twice what the average individual is at that menopause age, it can only lead to better health and longevity in general.
Yeah. So Geno, now again, you've seen thousands of lifters lift. You've met thousands of people on your journey. So for someone who's listening to this who's interested in becoming the best lifter they can be, who should they go out and kind of follow? So who are some of the best powerlifting or just lifting in general influence you have ever seen and met? I mean, you mentioned Ray Williams, you mentioned Ellis McLean, both of which and Blaine Sumner. We had two of the three on the podcast, and they are great guys, and they taught our listeners a lot. But who else, maybe that's maybe not so mainstream that you say, all right, guys, you go and follow this one, you're going to learn a hell of a lot?
There's some fellas that have some two come to mind. Mike Teixeira, who has his outfit called RTS, Reactive Training Systems.
We had him on the podcast also.
Yeah, geez, man, you've had everybody on. And Bryce Lewis, the strength athlete out of Colorado. Yeah. Both of those guys, you can learn a tremendous amount from them. Have you had the Heart Week Garys on?
Yes, several. We had Matt on twice, and they're really awesome people.
There's two extremely knowledgeable individuals. So, you can learn a lot. And Susie, a 6-time world champion, 24-time national champion. I mean, they back it up with the results. Same with Mike, same with Bryce. Bryce won the won the gold medal at the 105 kilo weight class at Raw Nationals this year. And so their outfits and those individuals and the people, the support staff that they have working for them, the other trainers that they have, because they're national now, people speak very highly of them. I think very highly of them. And you can learn a lot about just every aspect of the sport, right down to nutrition and weight loss and just little things that you normally wouldn't think of. And those guys can take you down that path. Those are just a few names. I could probably go on, but those are a few.
Okay, so with all that being said, for any of our listeners that might be new to the sport, that kind of want to get into it and really want to have a lot of success with it, what piece
or even just lifting in general?
Yeah, like what piece of information would you kind of give them to really reach their true potential with powerlifting?
Well, I would always tell. I've said this before. I think they should start out raw, and see where it takes them. And I got into a discussion once where I got not an argument, but a discussion where somebody said maybe you should just start out with a bench only or a push pull, and I disagreed with that. I said, if you want to start, you find somebody that can, read the rule book. Okay, get a rule book. You want to do USAPL, read the rule book. Okay, learn the basic commands. All right. Once you learn the basic commands, train in the gym the way you would train for a competition. Have somebody there that tells you start, press, rack until it's ingrained into your brain. And, squat and rack. Squat. How many times, Anthony, have you seen people come up with a successful squat and then rack before they get the rack command? Learn the commands for the 3 lifts. Okay. Read the book. Train with the commands in the gym. All right, and then get somebody that can that has been in the sport that can give you the basic tips to learn the 3 basic moves. Then you go to your first competition, you train, you're lifting raw, all right, and you do all 3. You go all 3. You start out light. You see what you're capable of. You go with ones that you can do in the gym, so that you get a confidence level, so that you hit your first ones, and then you see how it goes from there. You move on. Do you want to continue raw only? If you want to try gear, you try gear, but don't think that you can jump from raw to gear overnight. To this day I work out with a fellow named Billy Red Light Clayton, who is the technical chairman of the Raw Worlds this past week in Orlando. And we were just in his basement, and he said, he's going through all different kinds of shirts that he's wearing for benching. And he said it took me well over a year to get the full potential out of a shirt. And this is a guy that's been powerlifting for over 30 years. So it's not something that you can just jump right into the equipment. You have to you take the time to learn how to use the equipment and to compete in the equipped category. And then if you find you want to go to that next level, then you go get you go to RTS or the Strength Athlete or anybody else that you feel you have confidence in, and then start to train with those individuals, and then you work on all the specifics that they're going to give you over and above just learning the basics of the 3 lifts. I don't know if that was a help, but
no, it was. Geno, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We really, really appreciate it. And for any of our listeners, hopefully they'll compete in the USAPL and have the honor of having you announce them come out to the platform. Because let me tell you something, I've been to a lot of contests, bodybuilding, powerlifting, and no one announces like this guy. He's truly the best, one of the most humble guys in this industry. So it's an honor to have you on my podcast. So thank you so much for coming on. Geno, if anybody wants to follow you or maybe has any follow-up questions for you, where can they kind of follow you?
I should have an Instagram, and I get yelled at all the time for not having one, and I'm going to set one up shortly. But in the meantime, I appreciate you saying that. It's my Facebook is Geno Powerlifting. And if you go to Geno, Geno, not Gino, Geno Powerlifting, you should find me. And I occasionally get some. I just got a question yesterday morning from a guy I have no idea who he is. He said it sent me a message that said, do you have a Raw category, and how can I find out where to compete in the United States?
Well, why don't you answer that question for him on the podcast? This way you can just tell him I was on the podcast and we answered it.
We do have a Raw category, and all you got to do is go to USAPL.com and for USAPL competitions, and they have all that's remaining in 2016, the full calendar year of 2017, and the Raw category is growing. We're anticipating, Anthony, close to 1,500 people. I know I'm talking almost a year out, but close to 1,500 people at Raw Nationals in Orlando, Florida.
Well, I'll be there, buddy.
Next October. I know you are going to be. And you know what? If I could just say, and I appreciate the plug, and I also want to say, I hope to see Laura out there again, too, on the platform. I thought she did a fabulous job for her first competition, and I hope to see her on the platform again.
Yeah, she's going to, I think her next meet's going to be June 4th, so you'll see her and my co-host over here compete. So we're probably going to do the same meet, the Iron Gobbler, in June. I forget what he calls it in the.
Yeah. Okay, good. Oh, we'll see you back in New Jersey then.
Yes. So, Geno, thank you again for coming on, man. Pete, it's your turn.
All right, guys. Pete and Anthony with Geno Powerlifting, New York Muscle Radio, and we're out.
Enjoyed this episode of New York Muscle Radio? Make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave us a 5-star review, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, New York Muscle Radio.